So when Sierra Leone saw that, they had to take a look at themselves and say, okay, well, listen, these are the kind of people that we need in our country. So what I'm thinking is now, because the diaspora in general sends more money back to these countries than what China gives.
Wow.
And so
can you say that again? Because maybe they didn't catch that. That was deep.
Focus, man.
What's up, everybody? You know me. This is your guy, Jay Focus, reminding you to stay focused. But today we've got a very, very special guest. This man really needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. If you don't know who he is, this guy has been in the space since forever. Some people might call him the godfather of the Black manosphere, Black YouTubers. He's had his hands in so many careers, whether you want to name the Kevin Samuels, whether you want to name the Austin Hollimans, whether you want to name almost anybody of relevance. They've either shook hands with this man or he's had some hand in helping their careers go forward. So without much further ado, I'm going to give the mic over to the man to do his own introduction. O'Shea Duke Jackson.
Man, I didn't know who he was talking about, all those kind words, but O'Shea Duke Jackson from Sacramento, California. I'm African-American. Currently living in Uganda, and man, glad that you're hosting me on your channel.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. The pleasure's all mine. Now, I want to start it off with just asking you, since you've been behind the scenes of so many careers, where do you see the whole space going? Maybe not the Black manosphere specifically, but Black content creators. In what direction would you predict them moving to in the next couple of years?
So there's maybe two different kinds of Black creators. You probably have the African American sector, which I'm, involved in. And then there's, people like dibbling in the African content space from an African American perspective.
Sure.
So I think if you look at the traditional African American content space, we're in the same spaces that the whites are in, except for maybe celebrity, hip hop, or things like that. People reporting on, some of the Black conscious things, Dr. Umar type topics, 19 Keys, things like that. Mm-hmm. You think is going to develop because now you see somebody like not the lead attorney, but Pocket Watching with JT, who's covering, let's say, Black scammers in particular.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's getting more niche and defined. But on a larger scale, you're seeing more of the African American creator or African creator kind of want to tell their own story.
Yes.
And you can tell they're trying to monetize it. Let's give me an example. Look at Cameron and Mace.
Okay.
Cameron and Mace were rappers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Shout out to them. They did it big in the 2000s, if you were around for that era. Yeah.
Did it real big. Then they come with It Is What It Is when the Can We Come and Talk to Me YouTube channel. These guys did 3 or 4 months worth of work, $30 million deal.
Wow. Yeah. Incredible.
Same thing with, Gillian Wallow was the blueprint for that out of Philly.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now what you're seeing is just like hip hop, the Black creator is looking to own the majority of his work, merchandise, things like that. So you're starting to see YouTubers become more like independent rappers, if you will.
Gotcha, yeah.
Stuff like that. And then that's happening because we're finding out there's a market for it. We can get paid off our own people by doing it. So it's incentivizing a lot of the creators to get better. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I feel you. So you're saying just seeing other people do it successfully is making everyone across the board step their game up. That sounds like more or less.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're saying, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
the bar is just being raised.
I think before, let me just kind of talk about the Black manosphere. Because when I was in that community, shout out to City Mumia Ali, he was like, it was a testing stage to see if we would create content for Black men, what Black men supported. And I think the answer is with, some successful creators like myself, Kevin Samuels, people like that. The answer was yes, right?
Yeah.
So on a larger scale, people are asking themselves like, okay, do I have to go out and sound like a white creator? Or can I really be myself? Can I speak Ebonics? Can I talk about certain things? And you're seeing that people are responding and making good careers out of it, starting production companies out of it, moving to Africa like myself. So the answer is yes. So you're going to see people, and whenever you have more creators in the game, people are going to get better. Mm-hmm. Some people will fall off. But I think it's a good trajectory. I think it's a lot of opportunity in this business. You're seeing even in us, the Pan-African Dating Show, which you were on. Mm-hmm. That's something I wouldn't have attempted like 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure.
But now it's something that is, if you can stick with it, it's a good market. You have enough support to satisfy that business. Yeah.
Do you feel like in the beginning, the audience maybe, I won't say the audience wasn't looking for that, but the audience, it was just so new and just so radical that, you had to give them time to, get around to, okay, this is what they're trying to do. Okay, I can mess with this content. You know what I'm saying? Because it was so unlike anything else that was on YouTube at the time, or to be honest, even like on the major networks, because they come from a very specific perspective. Yeah. They don't represent the broad stream of African Americans. It tends to be more on, the left side and, more ghetto, addressing women's concerns and kind of the black men get a little bit sidelined, in that discussion.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And hood and ratchet. It's always depicting blacks in a negative way. But I think people just, with us wanting to be content creators, we got to understand that it is a business. Mm-hmm. And so in the business, you need to have quality and add value for people's time in this business, right? Because competition is getting stiff. So, but I think now in the black, there's no opportunity like a black opportunity. It's still the best always when you're dealing with blacks, Africans, it's always wide open. So you're going to always see that because we have so many people in the game that, not consistent, things like that. But I think this is a great opportunity for anybody to get involved in, especially in this burgeoning market here in Africa.
Great answer, rather. I want to ask you, over the time that you've been in Uganda, you've been here, is it 6 years now? Is that right?
Off and on 6 years.
On and off 6 years. Okay. In that time, now you're seeing more and more brothers coming to the continent. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. You were one of the major early faces, because, to keep it 100 with you, before you came to Uganda was not on my radar. I had seen the movie with Idi Amin. I was like, nah, I'm good. And, to see a brother who comes from the same country as me, same accent, has got the same kind of perspective, and seeing you out on the ground doing things and saying, oh, okay, he can interact in this kind of a way. Yeah. He's coming away with positive things to say because, not to beat a dead horse, but growing up in the States, a lot of times the relationship between Africans and African Americans has been strained at best. Oh, yeah. So most people weren't even thinking they would go to their land and get a better reception than they were getting from certain groups in the States, right? Right. So to see you go there and say, hey, he had a good time, he's got nothing but positive things to say, I can do the same thing. Like, what changes do you notice going forward? Like, what parts of Africa are getting more popular?
Oh, yeah. Let me just say, and I think you came maybe about a year after I came, you saw my videos.
That sounds about right.
So it's still a work in progress. What I would say is what is so different now than in 2017 is that you had a few African Americans in Africa that were documenting a small experience. Mm-hmm. What you're seeing now is that African Americans, there's so many now in Africa that are telling their story that you can definitely see that our particular community wants to be established as having a voice, like we're here now in Africa. Sure. Like we want that respect. It is almost obvious.
Going beyond tourism to actually like, all right, we're setting up here just like everyone else.
Yes. We want our respect. We want to have an interest on the continent, and we want to see things change. So that's the difference. Before it was, I'm here, okay, I was here for a week. And now you're seeing people like, we're here and we're wanting to stay, and we're trying to build a bridge from here to our diaspora and vice versa. And we want everybody to know that we are serious and we have rights here. That's what I'm seeing more or less. Okay. And then also you're seeing just more of the communities being connected. I know you're in Rwanda. You know, shout out to the residential tourists that were there.
Mm-hmm.
You see in these communities of people like Mark Meets Africa. You met him.
Sure.
So now you're seeing more of a community of African Americans in Africa that are actually able to like come to a podcast or link up or try to do a project, which that wasn't the culture 6 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I was going to say today. Do you notice any changes versus today to 3 or 4 years ago
No,
when you said, hey, I'm out here, let's come collaborate?
No. That wasn't the culture at all. You might have a person walking around with a phone and that was it. Now you're seeing guys, people are having actually like real events like in Ghana. People are having like Odana Network, shout out to them. They have a network where I think you can pay like $100 a year and you can get all these things that are actually, so people are monetizing these things. So that's the difference now. And as far as this things getting better, let me just say Nigeria is still the king of Africa in almost every facet.
They're the giant.
South Africa is not so far behind, but Nigeria definitely is on top. Then if you look at, countries close there, Ghana, Kenya, you're starting to see people getting better. Countries are trying to get better infrastructure. I'm starting to see roads are bad here in Uganda, but you can see like Uganda is trying to compete. Rwanda, in its own right, I mean, it's doing very well. Kenya is doing very well. So now you're seeing where countries are trying to at least get enough infrastructure to even attract their own diaspora. So not even like just us.
Sure, the people that they sent out recently coming back.
Yeah, okay. So, and even seeing in Ghana where some of the diaspora Ghanaians or Ghanaian Americans or Ghanaian British, I heard they're running like poultry enterprises out there. So you'll have like even Ghanaians running poultry, like Ghanaian Americans. Yeah. They're running enterprises, layers and meat. So you're seeing that trend happening too. So
that's awesome, man, because I feel like obviously it's our birthright as well, but who better to lead the next generation of, Ghanaians or Ugandans or whatever are the ones who got to be educated in the West.
Right.
Still have the connection, still probably speak some of the indigenous languages, the local languages, and they can operate in a way that almost no one else can, and they can come back and dominate because you see all these other groups come in and, they want their share, but the largest share, the lion's share should go to obviously the people in that country, but the people that have had that Western education and they can connect the needs from one side of the continent to, wherever England or, the States, Canada, wherever, and they can fill that gap. Certain countries in Africa now have announced programs where they're going to give citizenship to the diaspora. Yeah. Now, a lot of those programs are kind of murky, right? They're not so transparent. They're not so clear. But one thing that I find fascinating is because when these conversations were happening, let's say 5 years ago, a lot of the pushback would be people saying, well, you African Americans are never going to come here anyway, you know? And then when a country like Ghana or Sierra Leone announces something, the turnout is really incredible when you think about how quickly they announce it, how everything is not super clear. So it seems to me at least that there is a growing segment of people in the States who everyone has different reasons. Some want to reconnect with their roots. Other people, they have economic reasons. They want to come back and maybe open some hotels or, what have you, deal with the development of the country. But for many different folks, for many different reasons in the diaspora are wanting to come back to the continent. What's your take on that as far as them getting some kind of an expedited citizenship or a path to it? And reclaiming.
Helping us get citizenship in Africa has been an ongoing battle for many years. I think what really changed the game, especially for those of us who are from the Caribbean diaspora, the British diaspora, and people like me and you who are from the African American community, was the year of return.
Sure.
And so I think what the year of return showed was, number one, how much skill set is lost in America that could benefit the continent of Africa.
That's big.
The specialization and just seeing Africa in a different way than what you see right now. And I think that Africa is more likely to be more antiquated than it needs to be, just in my honest opinion, to be caught up in today's time. So once Ghana saw that, I believe that Ghana was like, listen, well, they have this money there, and some of these people have a very big ability to transform things, to put us onto the right path, and to see how our private sector operates differently. So when Sierra Leone saw that, they had to take a look at themselves and say, okay, well, listen, these are the kind of people that we need in our country. So what I'm thinking is now, because the diaspora in general sends more money back to these countries than what China gives.
Wow.
And so
can you say that again? Because maybe they didn't catch that. That was deep.
The African diaspora sends more money back than China gives governments.
Wow.
The difference is China is giving it to governments or loans, and people are, the diaspora is giving it to the families, remittances. Yeah. So
but either way, it's money moving.
Money moving, yeah. Mm-hmm. So what if most African countries are looking at the fact, well, if we have these African Americans or, Rwandese Americans or whoever else, or in German or wherever they are, these people have learned something that they can bring, and then we can catch up. Now, I think that's been expedited because of the efforts in the past and what the year of return was able to produce.
Sure.
Now, going forward, I think that we've had as many successes that we have had in Africa. We've had a lot of failures. And I think the failures and the ugly parts of that have been, some of the brothers getting scammed there, lamb scans, and, a lot of pushback. I think that's also delayed. But what I will say is the more success that we can have as a diasporan community, especially the African-American community, I will considerably see that that going up, as long as it doesn't turn into a situation where we're dominating the entire African countries, which I don't think that should be the case. But if we are able to somehow partner with African business people, startups, where everybody can win, I think that's a great way to speed it up, especially a country like Uganda, which because of their LGBTQ laws, they're going to lose out on certain levels of funding.
Sure, and they're going to have to look to new opportunities, things that they maybe have not considered in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is that a lot of African countries, in my honest opinion, are trying to do things too quick, and these things just take time. It takes time for somebody to get acclimated to the country, and but I think Sierra Leone has it right on the mark. Ghana is still going to make you do a lot more things. I think Uganda is 7 years.
What would you like your legacy to be 10 years down the road from now? O'Shea Duke Jackson did X.
I had impact in the repat community, firstly and foremost. And secondarily, because of the work we tried to do here, we brought a lot of people together. And thirdly, we made it easier for the next group that came behind us.
At any point, have you considered moving into film?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we want to do. I think we talked about that maybe the last time you were here briefly. Sure. We have the infrastructure to run that part of the business already. But everything is possible here.
Yeah, and I feel like if you put out something, the community would support. I really feel they would.
Oh, that's one thing I want to say about this whole thing about blacks are apathetic. And it's true they can be, but that has not been my experience. Everything I have is because of the African-American community for the most part. So this whole idea that black people are not going to support you, they're not going to help you, I just don't buy that. I think that if you're good and you offer value for what you're trying to do, you'll get so much support. You can't get it all.
Where does someone like you get a Pan-African mindset? Was that something that you developed later in university, or were you raised in a family that was, preaching that from the beginning? I'm curious because I feel like a lot of folks in the States, African Americans, they don't grow up with that. A lot of them, are struggling for that identity. They may not find that till later in life or maybe never. So I'm curious how that developed in you.
So my mom was raised in the 60s during the end of, let's say, the civil rights movement. Went to college in the 60s, UC Davis, so that was more or less when you saw the militant black SNCC and people like the Black Panther was going to come around in the 70s. And
Black Power Fist.
So she I'm black and I'm proud generation.
Yeah.
So of course that was different from my grandmother's generation, who was, yes sir, no sir boss, kind of had a very favorable opinion of Caucasians on my grandfather.
Sure. Yeah.
So you
just wanted to get out of their way.
Yeah, they were kind of like black Christians.
Sure.
Who
just leave us
they
alone
understood
type
it was
of
race, but don't make those white people. And my dad was just even worse than my mom. So,
Don't want to rock the boat. Right?
Yeah, he was, very militant about how he believed, but it wasn't. I would say we were very pro-African American.
Okay.
And I'm still very pro-African American. Because you cannot be Pan-African without being pro your people first.
Absolutely.
So for me,
sure.
So I can abandon that part of my identity. What happened was, I would say at first I became an African American who had Pan-African leanings. I would describe myself like that. But when I first came to Uganda in 2017, I still wouldn't consider myself Pan-African. Even when I moved here in 2020, I wouldn't consider myself that. But it just became my lifestyle and what I was doing and the things that I was putting out in the universe. It was something that you would say that you're living a lifestyle that is definitely Pan-African. You know what I mean? So you're working with Ugandans, you're working with Nigerians, you're
all across the board.
You're doing the things that, so I had to accept that title. But again, it came from the strong leaning of supporting, being very pro-African American, pro your people. Your people are the ones that, when you get educated, you're supposed to serve your group when you come back from that education. Now, we may tell you to go out and get a job in a house in the suburbs, but you should still be pro your group.
Yeah, never forget.
Way. Yeah, so you have some kind of duty for your community to do something. So that was always instilled in me. And of course, I had my doubts that I didn't owe people things and stuff like that. But then, again, I used to think about, well, what about the groups that came? What if they have that attitude towards me?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had... and then again, this whole tying that mentality into a greater Black issue, a greater Black conglomerate has shaped my opinions and being living here. Has really taught me a lot about myself, about the things I've challenged in the past, and so I wasn't. We were not taught to love Africa in my house at all. It wasn't a big.
Oh, really?
Thing.
Wow.
It wasn't so much of a big thing. We just knew that as far as Africa, that's where we come from in the slave trade, and that was it.
Yeah, that's typical of the experience in the States.
Yeah,
how we're raised.
Yeah.
Okay, and if I remember correctly, you attended at HBCU?
I went to Howard University.
Okay. Were there any differences that you noticed between African Americans in California and the ones in DC? As far as the pro-Black stuff or just how they interact? Anything that stood out for you?
The difference between East Coast Blacks and the West Coast Blacks, for the most part, the culture is... obviously DC, Baltimore, those guys, even Baltimore, DC, obviously the accents are different.
Mm-hmm. And they're more of a majority too, because in the West, you've got so many other groups. It's like, nobody's a majority, but you go to a DC where it's around 50% Black, somewhere around there.
DC, it's a lot more Blacks. It's a lot more Blacks as far as different kinds of Blacks. In California, we don't have. Yeah. Let's say some people outside of the African American community.
So many immigrants.
But now you have you see some Salvadorians that are there. You see some Black Cubans. You see everybody in DC. Yeah. Nigerians, Ethiopians are deep. So it was a more, because the city's bigger. But for the most part, everything is, the same because we go to the, AME church, our Baptist church, the songs are the same, preachers preach the same, Negroes
are the same. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's the same. If you drop me off in Philadelphia, outside of maybe not knowing even if I don't know Philadelphia slang, if I listen to what the guys are saying for like 5 minutes, I'll figure out what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know what they're talking, because they're still Black. So it's not too much stuff that I don't know, it's not going to go down or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just more curious, did you notice that there would be more pride in areas where it's more Blacks, or is it pretty much inconsistent?
Let me just say DC, Philadelphia, New York City, Baltimore, those are going to be the hearts of where Benjamin Banneker's DC,
Harlem, all that.
125th Street, Harlem. Mm-hmm. Of course, most of your stronger pro-Blacks and teachers either come from that area or those are epicenters. Absolutely. Even Black London to a certain degree.
Sure.
Chicago. Yeah. Leimert Park in LA. Mm-hmm. So in the pro-Black community, Leimert Park, everybody know you're talking about.
Yep.
You talk about 125th Street. You talk about Philly. Umar is from Philly. So your teachers in Richard Allen was from the AME was started with in Philadelphia. So those are your epicenters of Black thought. So the people who really who sit back and think about Black situations, Dr. Amos Wilson out of New York City, John Henry Clark. Mm-hmm. These are the people who gravitate there and they think about it and solve black problems and understand things from a different level. Those are epicenters of black thought in America. Those places, those 5 in particular. If you go to Morehouse, you don't come out the same. So that's what's so powerful about those cities.
Okay. Well, anything else that you want to say?
It's a lot of good people here, despite what people may have said or think. I think this is a new frontier for African Americans or anybody in the black world.
Sure.
To want to connect and expand your horizons and things you can do. Here, it may take you all week to get, let's say, a deal with Pepsi in America. But here you might get it in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. It might not be as much, but you have an opportunity.
Got you.
So here, if you're good, you can really do some things for yourself and add a lot of value and less competition. And you can also help improve systems here.
Sure. Yeah, there's more challenges, but then there's also more opportunities at the same time. Because I imagine that a lot of niches have already been filled in the States where, you're competing against everybody and their mama. But over here, there might be certain gaps that you see and you say, look, I might be the only guy or me and one other guy who are in this space.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be a lot of work for sure. But the thing about this place is you're absolutely able to eventually do it. And you can do, let's say if you're a person in the fashion industry, you can get fabrics from here. You can, sell it over there. I mean, look what you see the Afrobeats guys are doing now, the Burna Boy guys in Nollywood. Hey, that can be expanded. Guys are proving every day that in Africa, you can do this here. You don't have to always be in America to do it. You can do it from here, or you can do it in the black community, wherever. You have an opportunity. So as long as you're willing to do that, work on some of your people skills, have a little bit more patience, because you're going to need that here. I think it's a really good place to connect and really, if you're 20, 25, even older, 10 years, 10 to 15 years spending here, coming off and on, it'll change your life forever. I can guarantee you that. I've been here 8 years now. My life will never be, this is the best 8 years of my life. The last 8 years, but the best 6 years have been since I've been coming here. As far as money, as far as opportunity, as far as things that I can do, it's been better than my first 36 years. Wow. 42.
Wow.
This 6 years beat all 36.
Wow. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure, chopping it up with you. I know you're a busy man, so we're going to get out of here. And if you haven't subscribed already, I can't believe that you haven't. But if you haven't, you got to go to Kinganda. You got to subscribe to that. You got to subscribe to the Pan-African Dating Show and the O'Shea Duke Jackson channel. All of them are lit. Content is crazy, and this man works hard. Show some appreciation for him.
All right. Peace out, y'all.
All right. Whew.